Hi, this is the voice, Michael Chiavello. You're listening to the Premium Oddscast, hosted by leading MMA odds maker Nick Kalikas, fight scientist and author of Fightnomics Reed Kuhn, and MMA journalist Brian Hemminger. The absolute best UFC betting info, picks, statistics, and analysis from the most respected authority in mixed martial arts betting, MMAOddsBreaker.com.
Welcome to the Premium Oddscast, presented by 5 Dimes and hosted on MMAOddsBreaker.com. I'm Brian Hemminger, joined today by leading mixed martial arts odds maker Nick Kalikas to break down this Friday's Ultimate Fighter Season 20 finale event, which takes place in Las Vegas, Nevada. If you're unfamiliar with our format, myself and Nick will be breaking down the fight card from top to bottom, providing extensive analysis and a pick for each fight after doing our film study for the event. Then, fight scientist Reed Kuhn will step in and offer his expansive numerical insight on all bouts with sufficient data. Today, Reed will be able to contribute on 2 total bouts. Briefly looking back at our last event, our premium package bets for UFC 181 went 3-1 to win 4.94 units overall. Back to the present, the Ultimate Fighter 20 finale features an 11-fight card in total and will be aired on Fox Sports 1 this Friday night. Let's dive right in. Now, this bout order is to be determined, but on UFC.com, kicking off the preliminary card will be a women's strawweight bout between Emily Kagan, who is 3-1, taking on Angela Hill, who's 1-0. Now, Nick, where did you open this fight, and how's the public shifted things so far?
I opened Hill minus 165 to come back on Kagan plus 125, and right now looking over at the line of 5dimes.eu, the line is Hill minus 175 to come back on Kagan plus 145, and all lines are going to be courtesy of 5dimes.eu, so check those guys out. A little bit more action coming in early on Hill. Nothing major though, obviously, maybe some parlays are getting in the mix there, causing the line to raise slightly. This is an interesting fight. It's a tough fight because Hill is a pure striker that's gotten transitioned into MMA a little bit, of course, and she just doesn't have the well-rounded skill set that Kagan does. Obviously, she's working on that. She has a bigger upside because she's only 26 years old, where Kagan's 33. And I guess I'll start off with Hill since I'm talking about her right now. Her striking is very impressive. I mean, she does have that Muay Thai background that I was talking about. On the show, she did lose to Carla Esparza by rear naked choke. She hung in there and was very competitive with Carla up until the point that she did get finished there. So you could definitely see some positive things with Hill, especially from coming from that striking background. You could tell that she has potential in the MMA realm for sure. She's got great clinch work, mixes her striking up well, can finish with her hands or her feet. But again, the ground definitely is her biggest flaw, but she's shown some pretty decent takedown defense and working on that for sure on her overall game on the ground. So I guarantee you we're going to see a better version of Hill coming in here. Now, on the other hand, Kagan is a little bit underrated in my opinion. I mean, she's been training at Greg Jackson's camp for a while. She has a well-rounded skill set for sure. The problem with Kagan is she doesn't really excel in any area. She's more, in my opinion, she's more of a grinder. She's just more of a decision type of fighter. She's in your face. She's not bad. She has some decent movement on the feet, has a little bit of power. She's a southpaw, so that can be tricky, at times, and she uses decent angles. But she basically likes to close the gap, use her clinch work, and control the tempo of the fight. She doesn't have a huge sub game to worry about, but again, she's a little bit more well-rounded at this point, at this stage than Hill is. At 33 years old though, I don't think she's going to get much better, and I do see a lot more room of improvement, for Hill in this situation. So I do think that Hill deserves to be the rightful favorite because, again, I mean, she fought the top of the food chain basically on the show in Carla Esparza, and she was hanging in there relatively well, showed that she has some potential, and I think she's going to improve on that, and I'm expecting, again, a better version of Hill to show up here in this fight, and I think that Hill's going to throw a lot of bombs in this fight. She's going to make life very difficult and interesting for Kagan to get the nod here. I think Hill can stay a little bit busier. She can do more damage effectively on the feet, and I think she's going to be able to control the overall tempo of the fight. Even though Kagan's going to be trying to push the pace and trying to grind her out, I think Hill's not going to let that happen, and I think it's going to kind of go the other way around. So if it hits the scorecards, I think Hill's going to edge her out because her striking is going to be that much better, significantly better, that it's going to influence the judges, I think, that way. Or if there is a finish in this fight, I do think it's going to be Hill actually catching Kagan. So a tough spot as far as betting goes because you just don't know what to expect from Hill at this stage. And again, Kagan is a little bit more of the savvy vet, but as far as the pure pick goes, I have to lean with Hill because I think there is, again, that more upside angle.
And I understand, wanting to side with Hill just because of the upside. That is a little bit scary, but what makes this interesting is mainly that Nick mentioned. Kagan's 33 years old. She's never really lit the world on fire. She was the number 15 seed in the house compared to Hill, who was the 16. And Hill was really only the 16 because of her inexperience. As she gains experience, as she continues to improve her overall game, that skill gap is going to catch up. And I think that she has the potential to, get in there and mix it up with some of the better girls at 115. Obviously bring her along slow, but she could definitely get in there and make this interesting. Now, obviously Kagan, she really isn't that good overall in terms of any pure skill, but what she does best is she just kind of puts pressure on her opponents and kind of neutralizes a lot of the things that they do well. She made her fight against Joanne Calderwood actually pretty competitive, which was surprising. So she does a lot of things well, and she definitely has a chance to go in there and really bring the pain a little bit. So I think what's really going to happen here is either Hill is going to keep this fight standing and really work over Kagan on the feet as long as she has some space, or Kagan is going to put this fight in the clinch, look for takedowns, take away all of Hill's strengths, and make this fight ugly, because that's really how Kagan wins fights. She can't just stand in there skill for skill. And if Kagan drags this fight to the ground, she could walk away with a submission. But overall, I do think that as long as Hill has been really working on that takedown defense and footwork and everything, she can keep this fight at range and land something big and either win a decision or potentially knock Kagan out. So Angela Hill is my pick. Now, moving on and sticking with the women's strawweight division, just about every one of these fights will be strawweight fights. We have Aisling Daly, who is 14-5, taking on Alex Chambers, who's 4-1. Now, Nick, what's the MMA odds maker's perspective on this one?
I opened Daly minus 285, the comeback on Chambers plus 205. And right now it's minus 260 for Daly. Chambers is plus 200. So a little bit more action coming in on the dog. I think it's wrong. I expect Chambers to show up and put on a better performance than she did on The Ultimate Fighter. Chambers did lose to Rose on the show by submission. She really should be fighting at 105. So I totally understand why Chambers was in the mix on the show and, why she was at 115. She wants to get in the UFC and try to make some waves here. But the problem with Chambers is, in my opinion, she lets aggressive fighters push the pace, and that's exactly what Daly likes to do. It's another case for Chambers as well, where she's kind of talented in all aspects of the game. She's well-rounded. She just doesn't excel in any particular area. She doesn't have anything that you just would say that, man, okay, wow, she's dominant in that, she's dominant striking, she's dominant on the ground, so nothing that really is jaw-dropping at all. And she's going to be at a power disadvantage here as well. And the problem, again, with Daly is she is a savvy vet. She's been around for a long time, has a tremendous amount of experience, and she is pretty good in all areas of the game. Especially for me, I think Daly's best attribute is the ground. She's really slick, with her armbar submissions, of course. She's sneaky the way she sets them up. And she pushes a high pace. And at 115, I think it is a great weight class for Daly. She's fought higher weight classes before, and most of her losses have actually come at, the larger weights. So I think 115 is a good move for her, and I think that she's going to be able to make some waves in the division and be a tough out for most fighters. Again, she's an experienced vet, and she's aggressive and solid everywhere. She's going to push the pace. Typically Daly's biggest flaw is against wrestlers or grinders that could take her down, control her, and kind of push the tempo on her. But in this case against Chambers, she's not going to be in that disadvantage. So for me, it's pretty clear cut. Even though I think Chambers is going to show up and make things interesting and she's going to perform better, I still think that it's going to be a hard fight for her to win. I think Daly's going to be able to push that pace, be aggressive, control the tempo of the fight, possibly even submit Chambers along the way. But if not, I think she gets the nod on the scorecard. So for me, maybe Chambers can wait. I don't know if the UFC has future plans of bringing the 105 weight class in here, but for right now, this isn't probably the best situation for her. So I'm going to pick Daly to win this fight.
Yeah, and I'm going to keep this breakdown pretty succinct. Honestly, Aisling Daly is just way better than Alex Chambers. Chambers, being an Aussie, she brings in that other level of fans, but other than that, man, Aisling Daly is just going to be a lot bigger, a lot stronger. Daly should be better on the feet. She's a bit of a scrapper there. And on the ground, she has some pretty good grappling instincts. And, she can get top position. She can work over some good submissions. She does a lot of things really well. I mean, you got to remember, this girl finished Jessica Ai at 125. I mean, that's impressive. I mean, it was a while ago, but she still has that ability. She finished Angela Magana on the show before losing a decision to Jessica Penne. So, honestly, Aisling Daly is just a significantly better fighter than Alex Chambers. Chambers is just going to be too small. She doesn't really offer enough in any department to really threaten Daly. And as long as Daly's got her head in the game, then this is absolutely her fight to lose. So I think she is an easy pick here. So I'm going with Ash the Bash. Now, moving on, we have another women's strawweight bout. Bec Rawlings, who is 5-3, taking on Heather Jo Clark, who's 6-4. Now, Nick, where did you open this fight, and how's the public shifted things so far?
Up in Rawlings, minus 270, the comeback on Clark plus 190, and the line has dropped. It's minus 205 for Rawlings now. The comeback on Clark is plus 165, so more dog action coming in here on Clark. They're definitely respecting her overall ability, I think, and how she matches up. It should be a competitive fight, honestly, so I can understand some of that, but I guess starting off with Clark, I mean, she is experienced, savvy vet, solid fighter. But again, in another situations where she's not a huge threat anywhere. Her ground game really seems to be her best strength for sure. She has an okay takedown game, sub game, but she can also be put on her back and controlled. So there's some flaws there to go along with it. Rawlings, on the other hand, again, she's a little bit younger, she's fresher. She's improving, I think, every fight. From fight to fight, you could see some improvements in her overall game. She's a very talented fighter. A little bit underrated, I think. She's aggressive. She can beat you on the ground. She can beat you standing up a little bit. She likes to, again, push the pace. She's an in-your-face type of fighter. And she did, by the way, lose to Torres on the show by decision, in a competitive but, clear type of decision there as well. So I think Rawlings is going to be motivated. She should be the better fighter here in a lot of different areas. So I think it is going to be competitive. Clark's going to come in here and make things interesting and control part of the fight from time to time. But overall, I think Rawlings is going to end up pulling away and kind of make it clear for the judges, win at least a 29-28 type of decision, because I think she is a little bit more dangerous when it comes to actual finishing ability. And again, with her aggressiveness and the improvement I see from fight to fight, being that she's only 25 years old, where Clark's 34 years old, I don't expect Clark to really get much better. She's kind of plateaued, I think, and Rawlings, again, she's younger, she's going to have the upside to her. So that's what I'm going to bank on here. I know that the dog action has been coming in on Clark. I just disagree. It is kind of tough to bet this fight and lay that kind of juice on Rawlings, but I do think that Rawlings is probably going to come away with a win here. I'll be surprised if she doesn't. So my official pick is going to be Rawlings over Clark.
And I agree. Basically, where this fight is going to take place will decide who wins. Rawlings doesn't have a horrible ground game, but her wrestling isn't the best. And Heather Jo Clark, isn't an elite wrestler, but, she does know what she's doing down there. So on the feet, Bec Rawlings, while she's not a technician, she is very scrappy. She loves to brawl. She does a lot of things right in terms of just getting in there and throwing bombs and being active and pushing a high pace and winning judges over. So Bec Rawlings is a very good scrappy fighter, and on the feet, in pure trading situations, Rawlings is going to get the better of Heather Jo Clark. I mean, simple as that. In terms of on the ground, it gets a little tricky. I mean, Rawlings has a good ground game. She's submitted a couple people, so, she knows what she's doing there. But I think Clark could get the better of her in terms of wrestling. She might be able to lay down on top of her a little bit and just smother her and, maybe win a round or two. So that makes the fight interesting. But overall, I do just feel like Bec Rawlings has more energy. She's younger and she hits a little harder, and she should win this fight. So she's just the better fighter. So Bec Rawlings is my pick. Now moving on, we have another women's strawweight bout, this time between Joanne Calderwood, who is 8-0, taking on Seohee Ham, who is 15-5. Now, Nick, what's the MMA oddsmaker's perspective on this one?
Well, I opened Calderwood minus 565 to come back on Ham, plus 375. And Calderwood right now is minus 550 to come back on Ham is plus 400. So line just basically tightened up a little bit. Man, Calderwood, before the show, I mean, a lot of people were expecting her to definitely make some noise and be a contender. And she kind of lived up to the hype overall. I know that, her loss to Rose was a little bit surprising in some ways, but Rose is definitely legit. She's talented too. So her getting submitted by Rose isn't that much of a shocker to me, because if there's any flaws in Calderwood's game, it's definitely her submission defense and her ground ability. She is improving that aspect. She does have decent wrestling as well. But the matchup with Ham here, she's not going to have to worry as much about that. Both of these girls like to stand and bang. The problem here is Ham, of course, is a very hyped prospect, coming out of Korea, of course. Been fighting in Asia for a while. She's actually the Deep Jewels featherweight champion. I know the weight classes are a little bit different over there. So she's a very talented fighter. She likes to stand and bang. She has power on the feet. It's fun to watch her fights, really. She's decent in all areas of the game, but she's more of a decision type of fighter. Obviously, if you look at her resume, I believe she has like 13 wins by decision. So she doesn't have huge knockout power, but that's a little bit underrated, because if you watch her fights again, I mean, she mixes things up well enough. She's aggressive enough that she can do some damage. But again, she is a 105 fighter, and she's fighting Calderwood, which is fighting at 115. So to me, I really think that, she's going to be outclassed here. I mean, height, Calderwood's going to be 5'6" to 5'2" as far as, actual length goes. I think that she has so many advantages in this fight. I don't think Ham's going to be able to take her down. So Calderwood, if the fight goes to the ground at all, Calderwood's going to be the one that ends up on top. She's got some decent ground and pound. And then on the feet, I mean, Calderwood is just a killer. She's definitely an effective striker. She could do damage with her clinch game. She could do damage with her boxing. She could do damage everywhere the fight takes place. So this is going to be a fun fight for sure. There's no doubt about it. But I am expecting Calderwood to kind of rebound from her loss on the show and be really a contender at 115, no doubt about it. It's unfortunate, again, Ham in this situation, because I think she can definitely make some waves, and she's a very talented fighter, but she's just going to be outsized here and just a little bit outclassed. So my official pick is going to be Calderwood. Obviously, it's kind of a no-brainer. I mean, she's a 550 favorite for a reason. I think she is going to come through here, and she should put on an impressive show. So Calderwood it is.
And I completely understand why she's such a big favorite. Just a nightmare matchup here for Ham. I feel terrible. I mean, she's got a nickname, Hamderley Silva, because she's such an entertaining, violent fighter. She does so many things really well. She, very aggressive striker, but, Joanne Calderwood is just on another level and another weight class. I mean, Ham is a 105 pounder, and 10 pounds make a big difference when you're this small. Like percentage-wise. So, Joanne Calderwood is going to be a lot bigger, a lot taller, a lot longer. Her reach is going to be way better, and she's going to be stronger. She's going to be way better against the fence. And in pure MMA skills, I just think Calderwood's the better fighter anyway. Honestly, she is a very, very good Muay Thai striker. She's very dangerous from outside with some very dynamic kicks and, some Supergirl punches and all kinds of things she can do. And on the inside, she is absolutely devastating with her knees, with her elbows. She really can work you over with dirty boxing. Like, she's just a little buzzsaw. And she can take the fight to the ground if for some reason things aren't going well on the feet. Calderwood actually has a little bit of wrestling. She's not a great submission artist by any stretch of the imagination, but her top position is usually pretty good, and she normally avoids danger unless, I guess you're facing Rose Namajunas. So, honestly, this is Joanne Calderwood's fight to lose. Ham is a really fun, exciting fighter to keep an eye out for, but unless UFC's making a 105-pound division, I don't see her being much of a factor at 115. So, Joanne Calderwood is absolutely my pick to click here. Now again, sticking with the women's 115-pound division, we have Tecia Torres, who's 4-0 overall, taking on Angela Magana, who is 11-6. Now, Nick, where did you open this fight, and how's the public shifted things so far?
I opened Torres minus 600 to come back on Magana plus 400, and right now, it is minus 550 plus 400. So it just tightened up a little bit as far as the line goes. Torres not being in the finals is a surprise to many. I mean, myself included. She's such a talented fighter. Before the show especially, I mean, most of us thought that Torres was the woman to beat at 115, no doubt about it, and she was going to eventually wear that strap. Now, that's possible still, but she definitely showed a chink in her armor with, I mean, her takedown defense against strong wrestlers, strong grapplers. She can definitely get put on her back, controlled a little bit, get in some bad spots. Torres is young enough where she's going to continue to improve on that. I mean, for me, she's just a little spark plug. She's aggressive. She's very talented everywhere in all aspects of the game. And even against those talented grapplers, they, like us on the show with Esparza and like Randa, I should say, excuse me, she's going to get beat by talented grapplers like that, but she's still competitive enough to make things interesting in those cases. And again, I think that Torres is going to continue to get better and improve as time goes on. She's definitely going to be motivated. I don't think we've seen from a lot of these girls the best that they have to offer. I mean, being in that situation on The Ultimate Fighter is kind of tricky. It's tough. I don't think you're always going to show your best in that situation. So I think that's kind of what happened to Torres a little bit here. Now she's fighting another girl that's going to look to take her down, Magana. I mean, Magana's going to look to control her. She's an experienced vet. She's going to look to, especially early on, she's going to be strong enough that she might even get a takedown or two early on. I mean, it's going to be a little bit more difficult, but that's the kind of game plan she has. I mean, she's going to try to stand up and bang a little bit with her as well. Magana's just an aggressive type of fighter, but the problem with Magana is she's going to be good early on, or at least competitive early on, but as the fight goes, obviously she fades a little bit. And with a fighter like Torres, that is not a good thing. Torres is going to take control and dominate, I think, round 2 and round 3, even if round 1 is fairly close. Magana overall, she's got, again, a well-rounded skill set. She's physically strong for the weight class. I think that's basically her best attribute overall. And again, I think she excels a little bit more on the ground, but against Torres, she's just going to be in a world of hurt here. I think that, you know, even if she does survive enough to go to the scorecards, which is very possible, I think she's going to just get outclassed by Torres. So Torres is going to have a point to prove here. She is one of the best fighters at 155 in the world, or 115, excuse me, in the world. There's no doubt about that. And she's going to have a point to prove, and I think she's going to start off with taking things out on Magana here. So my pick is a no-brainer. Again, another high favorite that should come through here in Torres.
And I agree. Mainly my problem here with Magana is she's just not a good enough striker to stand there and trade with Torres, and that's primarily what she likes to do in fights. I mean, occasionally she will shoot in for takedowns, but even when she does that, she can get submitted, and I think Torres has really experienced some harsh lessons on The Ultimate Fighter about her takedown defense and just how much more work she needed to put into it, and I guarantee that she has put in a ton of time since The Ultimate Fighter at American Top Team, working over all of her takedown defense. I mean, she's working with one of the best 115-pounders in the world. So I really don't see her having too many issues. I mean, Jessica Aguilar every day working with her. I mean, how can you not get better? So I just don't see Angela Magana doing anything that's going to threaten Torres, because on the feet, Torres is dynamic, she's quick, she has terrific conditioning, high pace, high volume, great footwork, constant movement and pressure, and she can counter. She just does a lot of things well. She's a career martial artist, so a lifelong martial artist, so she's been, you know, practicing a lot of these kicks her whole life. Now, Torres doesn't have the most power, so, you know, there's no guarantee that she's going to get a finish here, because most of her fights are usually decisions, one-sided decisions, but she's going to do enough here to probably just completely dominate Angela Magana over the course of 3 rounds. Now, Magana has a little bit of power, and maybe she can get a takedown, but I just don't see enough happening here that's going to stop the Tecia Torres train. And Torres is definitely motivated, and I think she's going to make a statement here on this TUF finale. So my pick is Tecia Torres, and I think she wins convincingly. Now, again, sticking with the women's strawweight division, we have Felice Herrig, who is 9-5, taking on Lisa Ellis, who's 15-8. Now, Nick, what's the MMA oddsmaker's perspective on this one?
Herrig opens minus 380 to come back on Ellis plus 260. The line has been bet down a little bit. It's now minus 350 for Herrig. The comeback on Ellis is plus 260. So actually it didn't get bet down. It just tightened up a little bit. Man, I'll tell you what, they really made Ellis out to be just a quitter on the show. I mean, if you watch the show, you understand what I'm talking about. I mean, her fight against Penne, they really basically made it seem like she quit. And it's hard to argue because it looked like she didn't give it her all. But make no mistake, Ellis is being severely underrated overall. She's a pretty solid fighter, and she's been for a long time. It's just, with her personal life, with having kids, all that stuff comes into play, of course. And sometimes you're not going to be your best. And I think that Ellis is getting to that point in that stage in her career where the best days are probably behind her. But it's just a shame that she was a little bit, I think, in my opinion, disrespected overall, because she's a talented fighter. She's been in there with some really good competition overall, and she's been competitive and hung in there relatively well with most. But looking at Ellis, I mean, the stylistic matchup with Herrig here, it's interesting because Ellis is basically your wrestler, your grinder type of fighter. She tends to want to get the fight to the floor, use her submission game, control the tempo of the fight, and usually has some success that way. Against Herrig, it's going to be difficult a little bit. Herrig has kryptonite, which is getting put on her back, controlled by submission fighters as well. So it seems like Ellis would be a difficult fight for her. But then again, I think that Herrig is going to continue to improve. I think she's getting better fight by fight. I know, that fight on the show against Randa, I keep saying Ronda, but I mean, it's Randa. That was a difficult spot for Herrig, and she kind of, got beat fairly quickly there. Didn't look that impressive at all. But before that, you could really see some signs of improvement for Herrig overall. I think she's always been in the spot where there was tons of hype around Felice Herrig. I mean, before she came into the Ultimate Fighter, she's an extremely popular fighter. And she was getting overrated in a lot of aspects of the game and overall. But she's finally starting to get better and starting to make things interesting enough with her skill set that she can hang and compete with some of the best 115 pounders on the planet. I have no doubt about that. Now, I mean, the top level or winning a title or getting close to that spot is going to be kind of difficult for her because I think she definitely needs to improve on the ground. And that's where Ellis is going to test her. But in this matchup with Ellis, with a kind of a declining Ellis here, I think it's a good fight for Herrig. Herrig is a little bit more aggressive. I think she's better on the feet. She's just a better overall fighter, I think, as far as skill set goes. Ellis, again, is going to probably have to get Herrig down and try to control her, try to sub her out that way. And I think Herrig is going to make things interesting enough where even if she does get put in a bad spot, she's going to scramble out because she has shown ability to scramble and get herself into a better position. And if that's the case, I think Herrig is going to eventually take control and win 2 out of 3 rounds of this fight, if not all 3. So even though it's an interesting matchup stylistically, it seems like it might be a bad matchup for Herrig. And even though Herrig in the past has been a little bit overrated, I still think this is a good matchup for her. And I really would be surprised if Ellis does get the W here. But as far as a betting standpoint goes, I mean, this is a difficult line to bet. I could see it being a dog or pass situation because, I mean, Ellis is going to be motivated. She's going to want to redeem herself for sure. By the way they kind of made her sound on the show, and she's obviously training at a decent camp with, her husband, and she has a ton of experience. So she's going to be motivated and she's going to have a point to prove. So Herrig is not going to have an easy fight, but still, with all that being said, I still think it's Herrig's fight to win or lose. So it's hard not to pick her in this spot. I think Herrig is going to come away with a victory here.
And I understand why you're on the side of Herrig, mainly because, on the feet, Herrig is a pretty good kickboxer. On the ground, Herrig's wrestling isn't terrible. She has a bit of a decent submission game as well. So she's overall pretty well-rounded. Against really technical fighters, she has trouble on the feet. Against really good wrestlers, she does have trouble. Lisa Ellis, if she works her wrestling really well in this fight, she could win it. Honestly, she has some terrific overall grappling, some powerful takedowns. She's utilized them in the past. She can get a lot of people to the ground if she wants to. Her problem has been cage rust. This is her first professional fight since she had a baby, and it showed on The Ultimate Fighter. She was having a lot of problems. It didn't look like she wanted to be there. And then Dana White said she quit in her fight against the rematch against Jessica Penne on the show. So, they really didn't portray her well at all, and I'm certain that really motivated her. She wants to go into this fight and make a statement as well, but Felice Herrig's a pretty tough opponent, and these guys are relatively evenly matched. I think the line is off. I don't think Herrig should be as big of a favorite as she is, especially if Ellis fights to her potential, because she is a much better fighter than she appeared on The Ultimate Fighter. But who knows? She could be coming in here and just lay another egg. So, Herrig on the feet should be able to have her way with Ellis. Ellis is really only at her best when she gets takedowns and finds some space on the ground to drop some big punches and elbows. So that's where Ellis is going to win this fight if she does win it. And then everywhere else, Felice Herrig should actually be in control. So I'm going to pick Herrig. I'm not crazy confident because you just don't know if Lisa Ellis is actually going to show up this time. So I'm going to tentatively pick Felice Herrig, but Lisa Ellis is a bit of a live dog in my opinion. Now we have a pair of semifinalists in the women's strawweight division in Jessica Penne, who is 11-3, taking on Randa Marcos, who's 4-2. Now, Nick, where did you open this fight, and how's the public shifted things so far?
I opened Penne minus 130, the comeback on Marcos minus 110, and right now it's actually staying steady. It's minus 130, minus 110. So some two-way support. I should mention this line is fairly fresh too, hot off the press, so I'm sure we'll see a little bit of movement. But right now it's staying near pick'em with a slight lean towards Penne. I think that's about right. It's fair. I mean, near pick'em is fairly accurate because Penne has several advantages in this fight. I think she's got advantage on the feet. Her pure BJJ is pretty hard to deal with at times too, and she's just such a long fighter and a skill fighter to go along with it, and she keeps on getting better and better. So Penne is a hard matchup for most girls for sure. But Marcos can definitely be game in this fight and make some noise because I think that she can control the tempo of the fight. She can get the takedowns, where needed and when needed and possibly grind out a decision win here. Now, of course, she's going to have to be very cautious when she's on the ground because, I mean, Penne's jiu-jitsu is legit. She can submit you off her back for sure. She can reverse things and maybe get top position. And of course, Marcos is coming off of, the Kimura loss in her last fight to Rose on the show too. So I'm sure that's going to be fresh in Penne's mind. So there's definitely some holes in Marcos's defense that, could get exposed by Penne. But overall, I think it's going to be a relatively competitive fight. And if Penne does not sub Marcos, I think Marcos is probably going to grind out a decision win. It's going to be relatively close, so I'm kind of going back and forth on this fight, obviously, because it's such a tough fight to pick, honestly. These girls are talented. But I'm going to slightly lean towards Marcos again because of that wrestling advantage. She has a decent submission game in her own right. And I know both these girls are going to be much improved. I mean, to me, The Ultimate Fighter, the show, the house, all that stuff is almost like a boot camp for MMA. You have no choice but to get better and take things a lot more serious after the show. So that's why you see certain fighters improve their overall game and get better. Because it's not easy, I think, to go through that scenario. So both these girls are going to be, that much better. And I think that, Marcos does have a slight edge only because that she is the better grinder, she is the better wrestler. And Penne, if there's any kryptonite or flaws to her game, it's definitely her getting put on her back and controlled by fighters like that. So that's why I'm slightly leaning towards Marcos right now. So that's going to be my official pick. But make sure you guys do stay tuned again to the Oddsbreaker staff picks because I could flip it after weigh-ins. We'll see. I'm going back and forth on this fight, but for right now, it's Marcos for me.
And I understand the Marcos pick because Jessica Penne's takedown defense is absolutely atrocious. As you saw in the Carla Esparza fight, Carla was able to take her down at will, repeatedly just blistered forward and powered her to the canvas. But what I found interesting was Carla really wanted nothing to do with her once they were on the ground because Penne is so slick on the canvas with her Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. So that is something that Randa Marcos needs to be really cautious about because Randa is not a very good stand-up fighter, and neither is Penne. Penne really does have a ways to go, but in my opinion, Penne is the better overall striker. She's starting to put it together. She mixes it up with some simple combinations on the feet, and I think that she does it better than Randa does. Randa's biggest strength, obviously, is her wrestling and her overall top position control. That's how she was able to get that huge upset win over Tisha Torres in the first fight of the season. And then Felice Herrig, she was opportunistic finding an opening in the first round. So I really don't see her being able to pull any of that kind of stuff off against Penne because Penne is so crafty. She is extremely flexible, has very long limbs on the canvas, and I think she could make Randa Marcos very uncomfortable on the ground. As you saw in the TUF semifinal, Randa got submitted from top position against Rose Namajunas because she, gave up a Kimura. And Jessica Penne could go for that. Jessica Penne could go for all kinds of chokes. She has a very good triangle choke. She's a very, very dangerous, fluid ground fighter. Probably her and Rose Namajunas were the two best submission fighters on the show for The Ultimate Fighter Season 20. So if Randa plays the takedown game and tries to win a decision, she's playing with fire. And I think it's only a matter of time before she gets caught with a submission, or maybe she gets outpointed on the feet. It wouldn't be a pretty stand-up fight, but I think Jessica Penne could win there as well because she does have slightly longer limbs. So my pick is going to be Jessica Penne, and the only thing that's concerning me is if Randa can take her down and keep her down. Now moving on to the men's side of things in the lightweight division, we have Joe Proctor, who is 10-2, taking on Yancy Medeiros, who is 10-2 with 1 no contest. Now, Nick, what's the MMA odds maker's perspective on this one?
Medeiros minus 230 to come back on Proctor plus 170. Right now it's minus 270 for Medeiros, plus 210 on Proctor. So a little bit more action coming in on Medeiros. I can understand it. I mean, Medeiros definitely has some talent. In his win over Damon Jackson, that was a nasty reverse bulldog choke that he ended up submitting Jackson with. And Jackson's a very talented fighter, so I don't think people realize how good of a win that was. And then, of course, he had that setback before that, though, to Jim Miller. The problem with me, Medeiros has been in there with some pretty decent competition, especially recently. But defensively, he's shown some flaws. Offensively, he's got no problems. I mean, he's a fun fighter to watch. He could do some damage on the feet. Obviously, he's even showed some submission skill now as well. Training with Melendez, training with the Diaz brothers, it only helps his cause, but he definitely has to tighten up that defense. I mean, he's very hittable. He's a tough guy, has a granite chin. And that's one of the reasons where he's able to absorb some of these, some of this punishment that he's taken, but that's never a good idea. So that's always scary. And he definitely needs to address that concern. Now, Proctor, on the other hand, I think he's a very well-rounded, talented fighter, a little bit underrated in most aspects of the game. On the ground, he's going to have a pure submission edge for sure. I think he's, again, a little bit underrated when it comes to his wrestling, when it comes to his grappling ability. On the feet, he does have a little bit of power. He could do some damage as well, of course. I mean, he's coming off of an impressive knockout win over Salas, so you got to give him credit there. But as far as this matchup goes, I think he's going to have some problems because Medeiros' aggression is going to be a big factor here. And Proctor's going to want to probably take this fight to the ground and get Medeiros down. I don't think he's going to be able to because Medeiros does have some pretty good takedown defense. He's hard to control underground. So if this stays standing, I mean, Medeiros should have the edge because offensively, he's definitely the more talented of the two fighters, the more aggressive fighter, and the more capable fighter of finishing the fight on the feet. So Proctor is going to have to be cautious, going to have to be wary, and going to have to come up with a good game plan, I think, in order to beat Medeiros. But the problem with the betting line here is Medeiros is so defensively flawed. I mean, Proctor, again, kind of flying under the radar a little bit, and he's more fundamentally sound. He's more technically sound, I think, in this spot. So Proctor maybe lands something. He could get a quick takedown, catch his back, catch his neck, anything like that, and it could be over really quick. So that's a danger by laying this kind of juice in this particular matchup here. I think it's not really a dog or pass situation. I think it's more of almost a pass situation, to be honest with you here, and see if Medeiros comes through and his defense gets a little bit better against a pretty solid, underrated fighter like Proctor. So my official pick is going to be Medeiros. I think he does find a way to win this fight. I'm not expecting this fight to hit the cards, honestly. I think that we're going to see a finish here. And it's probably going to be Medeiros finishing Proctor. But I wouldn't be shocked at all if Medeiros' defense lets him down and Proctor ends up beating him as well. So dangerous if you're putting him in Medeiros and parlays. Just be a little cautious. Don't go crazy with it because of those defensive flaws that I'm pointing out. But as far as a pure pick goes, I think Medeiros has a lot of potential. And if he can tighten up some holes in his game, he could definitely live up to some of that. So Medeiros is going to be my official pick over Proctor.
I really do like Medeiros' stand-up here. He's going to be the much more athletic, explosive, dynamic striker compared to Proctor, who is a lot more stiff, robotic, and plodding on the feet. But don't sleep on Proctor because he does have power. I mean, two of his UFC wins are by knockout. So if he connects with those hands or with a knee, you're in trouble. The guy definitely can finish a fight, even though he doesn't move as fast or anything else. He still does a lot of things right in the UFC, and he trains with Joe Lozon, so, that's a great sparring partner to have to really, round out your game. Now, if this fight goes to the ground, I definitely favor Joe Proctor. He has a really sneaky wrestling game with some hybrid jiu-jitsu. He does a lot of things really well. And Yancy Medeiros has been vulnerable in the past to some guys with good ground games. Obviously, Kabalov got him down before the injury in his UFC debut. And then Jim Miller was able to submit him relatively easily in his most high-profile fight. So the one thing that did impress me, though, was Medeiros bounced back. I mean, his last fight, Damon Jackson, that guy was no slouch. He was undefeated. He was a good prospect. I believe the Legacy FC champion. And he comes in there, and Medeiros, has his way with him and does a good job. And granted, he was undersized, but that doesn't matter. Jackson was a good wrestler, and Medeiros did a really good job and ended up getting a submission. So I don't see him submitting Joe Proctor, because this guy is his own size this time. It's not on short notice. This is a full camp. But in open space, Medeiros should be pretty safe. He should be able to land some pretty solid strikes. And as long as he can protect his face, get out of the way of some of Proctor's attacks, then Medeiros is going to land some big shots on the feet at some point in this fight. And Proctor will probably get hurt by them, because I just don't see Proctor being able to stand and bang with Medeiros evenly. Now, Proctor could land that one big shot, but I'm not gonna invest my pick for this fight on, a puncher's chance. So I'm gonna go with Yancy Medeiros, and I think he keeps this fight standing, and he either finishes Proctor on the feet or walks away with a relatively one-sided decision.
Now, with the lightweight division, we have a very compelling matchup between KJ Nunes, who is 12-6, taking on Darren Cruickshank, who is 16-5. Now, Nick, where did you open this fight, and how's the public shifted things so far?
Cruickshank minus 165, the comeback on Nunes plus 125. That was my opener. And right now, looking over at 5 dimes, is Cruickshank minus 205. The comeback on Nunes is plus 165. So, more action coming in on Cruickshank here. Not that surprised. I mean, he's the more popular fighter. He's been in the spotlight a lot more, and he's performed relatively well. And I've always been one guy that hasn't been the biggest Cruickshank fan. Obviously, if you guys have been listening to the podcast, you know that. I tend to just disrespect his overall skill level more than I probably should. But the guy's definitely getting better. He's dangerous in all aspects of the game as far as the stand-up goes. I've underrated his stand-up ability a little bit. I know that his kickboxing's pretty neat. He's got good movement on the feet. He's got power to go along with it. He uses his kicks well. I just thought against elite level competition, he's not going to fare as well. But I mean, look what he's accomplished lately. Even in his loss to Masvidal, I think he was respectable. He performed there as well. So got to give the guy credit, and he's better for sure than what I made him out to be, at least. But he's got another tough one here in Nunes, I think. I think that KJ Nunes is, again, another one of these underrated fighters. There was a ton of hype on him a while back, of course. He had those battles, and we all know a few years back with Diaz. But he hasn't quite lived up to all the hype either. Now I think he's at the point where he's almost getting a little bit underrated by the UFC fans and faithful out there. He has an impressive knockout win over Stout. Now, of course, that was in a weight class higher, and he's coming back down to 155 for this one, so that's makes things interesting as well. He's got a good win over Soteropoulos, which is impressive recently as well. And of course, before that, he ended up losing to Cerrone by decision. So this is an interesting matchup here. I think that Nunes, what he brings to the table is, of course, his tremendous knockout ability. I think he's got the better hands in this spot. I think he's the better pure puncher, and he has a better shot at landing something clean on Cruickshank than vice versa. Now, of course, Nunes has been knocked out in the past. He's been rocked on occasion as well. You could say the same thing, I guess, about Cruickshank. So chin to chin, I think both of them are pretty solid overall, but they can be put down, they can be rocked, they can be damaged for sure. Cruickshank's overall game on the feet, mixing in his kicks, mixing in those angles, is a little bit unorthodox, and it's going to be a little tricky for Nunes to deal with. And of course, Cruickshank can also get some takedowns, and it's going to be hard. It's not going to be easy against Nunes. Nunes has improved his takedown defense big time, but he can make things interesting enough that he can push that type of pace, maybe clinch up against the cage with Nunes, and steal a decision if he does get a brief takedown as well. So on the feet, I think it's going to be relatively close. I actually give the pure striking advantage in some ways to Nunes, because I think his boxing is going to be more effective than Cruickshank's, but Cruickshank's kicks make things interesting for sure. And I think Cruickshank's overall game is what's going to come into play and matter here. So I'm not very confident, but I am going to pick Cruickshank here to win this fight. He's the better overall skilled fighter. And again, I have to respect what he's accomplished as of late. He keeps on improving and getting better. So I think Cruickshank is probably going to win this fight by decision. If there is a stoppage either way, I wouldn't be too shocked here either. But for right now, I'm going to side with Cruickshank to win this fight.
And I'm in complete agreement. Darren Cruickshank, in my opinion, is just the more diverse fighter. KJ Nunes, he is a great boxer, and if this was a boxing match, he'd probably win it, or it would be really close. But the fact that it's a mixed martial arts fight, it tends to side it in Cruickshank's favor. The guy mixes it up very well with his kicks and punches. He almost uses his kicks like a jab at times, and they can definitely finish fights as well. You've seen it multiple times where he's set up finishes with head kicks or finished the fight outright with head kicks. Cruickshank can mix in wrestling. His wrestling isn't elite, but he's athletic enough and explosive enough to get inside and change the pace of the fight if Nunes is getting some work done in the pocket. So honestly, I just really like the dynamics of Cruickshank's game. Nunes is going to be able to hold his own in a pure stand-up contest if he can keep it at the right distance. But if Cruickshank's at longer range, he's going to be landing a lot of kicks and Nunes won't have a response. And if it gets too close and Nunes is doing some work, Cruickshank can shoot in for takedowns. So I really do think that this is Cruickshank's fight to lose, and the only thing that scares me is he's a little bit chinny. Nunes' chin has pretty much held up. I mean, the guy's been in there against Nick Diaz and Jorge Masvidal and a bunch of really big heavy hitters, and he's only been rocked, I think, once or dropped once. So I think Nunes is going to be fine in that department, but Cruickshank should probably still pull this one out. So he is my pick. Now, Reed, what do the numbers tell us for this one?
Well, the numbers agree with most of the points you guys have made. Cruickshank definitely has a diverse striking attack. He throws a lot of kicks at the body and the head. He really uses his feet more than the vast majority of UFC fighters. And that's one reason why his knockdown rate is so high. He's scored 5 knockdowns already in his UFC tenure, and that's at a very high rate, well above the division average. KJ Nunes, in terms of power, is below average. They have equal accuracy, but that's because Nunes is using his hands, not his feet so much. Now, in terms of controlling the cage, Cruickshank has been able to outwork opponents on his feet, while Nunes, not as much, but is used to throwing more total volume, at least in terms of average strikes per minute, because it's a lot easier, obviously, to throw a punch than it is a kick and less tiring. So on the feet, it's going to be close. The kicks tend to score more points, even when they don't necessarily do anything, but they're more aggressive. And so I think if Cruickshank does keep the distance, and he will have the longer reach here, and he will also be switching stance a lot. So we'll see what he comes out with and what he tries to favor. I think it's his kicking game versus Nunes' hands, and, the range will help Cruickshank here. And as you guys pointed out, Cruickshank is much more likely to be the one that would take this to the ground. He doesn't especially go there very often, but Nunes almost never initiates takedowns, and his takedown accuracy is very, very low. But he does have good defense. He's been put on his back a lot, whereas Cruickshank, not as much, but certainly more than, he's not exactly a top control kind of guy, but compared to Nunes, he probably has the advantages. So a few advantages, all leaning towards Cruickshank, but don't count Nunes out. Obviously, his hands are very, very good. That's his specialty. So expect to see it fairly competitive on the feet. And one more thing is, what's the effect of the small cage that they're going to be in? How is that going to affect their game? It could give Cruickshank less room to set up his kicks. Maybe it favors the boxer, or it makes Cruickshank, it gives him a little bit, less distance to cover to back Nunes up against the fence line to get him on the ground to help him win rounds. So, there's some unknowns here, but enough for me to lean towards Cruickshank.
All right. Excellent. Thanks, Reed. Now, dropping down into the featherweight division, we have Jeremy Stevens, who is 23-10, taking on Charles Oliveira, who is 18-4 with 1 no contest. Now, Nick, what's the MMA oddsmaker's perspective on this one?
Great fight. I opened it close to a pick'em. Stevens minus 125. The comeback on Oliveira minus 115. This line immediately flipped. Oliveira became the favorite. So some action early on coming in his way. Line has since flipped back and Stevens started climbing a little bit. And now it's back down to almost exactly where I opened it. Stevens is minus 125. The comeback on Oliveira is minus 105. So line's just got a little bit tighter. And there has been a tremendous amount of early two-way support on both guys. It's a head scratcher, really. I mean, both of these guys are extremely talented. And I could realistically, again, see it going either way. So it's not an easy fight to dissect. I mean, obviously, if Stevens is able to keep the fight upright, he's going to have some advantages in this fight. I mean, Stevens is an explosive striker, has a ton of power. At 145, he's been able to carry that power with him, and he's done extremely well. I mean, his fight with Swanson was a barn burner, really. It was a great matchup. But before that, I mean, he was impressive and able to maintain the fight upright against Elkins, did what he had to do. A lot of people were counting him out there, and he came through. This fight with Oliveira, he's going to have to almost do the same thing. He's going to have to maintain this fight upright if he wants to win this fight, because Oliveira on the ground is just sick. I mean, as far as pure jiu-jitsu, offensive jiu-jitsu skills, I mean, the guy submitted Haoki for heaven's sake. So, I mean, what else can you say about that? Haoki never been submitted, has a tremendous ground game, as we all know. And Oliveira was the first guy and probably the only guy that's ever going to submit Haoki. So that's how talented the guy is. I mean, once he gets you on the ground, his submission skill is just lethal. So Oliveira's going to look to take this fight to the floor. Stevens going to have to sprawl and brawl. On the feet, though, you can't really count Oliveira out. I mean, offensively, again, he does have some skill. He mixes things up pretty well. He could be effective with his striking. And Stevens has been knocked out before. Now, he's got a solid chin, so I'm not going to say he's chinny. Stevens has been in there with some great fighters and has survived a lot of heavy punches. But, I mean, Oliveira's sneaky good on the feet, a little bit underrated on the feet, but make no mistake, I mean, if Oliveira wants to win this fight, he's going to have to get it to the ground. Now, the tricky part here is Oliveira, I think, is a little bit underrated in the wrestling aspect of things, too, and the way he goes about getting takedowns. So, if Stevens makes a mistake, I could see Oliveira possibly, taking his back or getting him to the floor and finishing his fight with a sub. So that's why I've kind of been going back and forth on this. What bothers me the most about Oliveira is if the fight does stay standing, I mean, he does have a tendency to fold at times. I mean, we've seen it against Cub Swanson. I mean, you got to give credit to Cub Swanson with that KO for sure. But still, I mean, he was physically, I think, and mentally dominated in that fight. And against Cowboy Cerrone, I mean, early on when Cerrone just devastated Oliveira as well. So Oliveira has a little bit of give, meaning that, I mean, when things are not going really well for him early on, he tends to fold a little bit. And Stevens has that kind of power to make people kind of fall into that mode. So I'm going to slightly lean towards Stevens for right now, because I think more times than not he should be able to keep this fight upright, and with his power he's going to give Oliveira some fits. And Oliveira, if he does have that give in him and that's kind of give up in him, we might see a similar spot here. But overall, pound for pound, there's no doubt about it that Oliveira is a more technical fighter. He's a more skilled fighter. So that's why it's so tough to pick against him. But I'm going to slightly lean towards Stevens. But of course, you guys make sure you check out MMAOddsBreaker, our staff picks, because that's going to be my official pick. We'll be posted on there. Could change my mind after wins, but for right now, I'm going to lean towards Stevens.
Yeah, and I'm in agreement. The main thing here is that while Oliveira is incredibly dangerous, he is a very, very talented fighter. He is an all-or-nothing fighter. This is a crazy stat. I know I'm not the stat guy, but in every single one of Charles Oliveira's UFC victories, including the one that ended up getting overturned to a no contest, he has scored a submission. Every single time. So, this is a guy that needs to get a finish or he does not win a fight. He lost the one decision he was in, and then he's also been submitted and knocked out twice. So, it's very, very interesting, the curious case of Charles Oliveira. And what this comes down to is, can he finish Jeremy Stevens? And I'm not quite convinced. I mean, yeah, he can finish the guys like Darren Elkins that are pursuing the takedown, or Hachihioki who wants to go to the ground. Andy Ogle looking for takedowns, was competitive in that fight, by the way. And is Jeremy Stevens going to be trying to get this fight to the ground? No way. Jeremy Stevens wants to sprawl and brawl. He wants to keep this standing, just like in that Darren Elkins fight. And he wants to just lay into Oliveira on the feet. And standing and trading, Stevens is very good. He has excellent power. He can take a shot. The only person that's ever even had him in trouble, really, was Eve Edwards, and that was, just in my opinion, just a one-off kind of thing. So I really think that if he keeps this standing, Jeremy Stevens is going to be in great shape. Oliveira does have a high volume, high pressure, mixes it up, but he's not knocking anybody out. I think Stevens can walk through his punches, and try to dictate his own stand-up game. So, in my opinion, as long as Jeremy Stephens keeps this fight standing, it's his fight to lose. Oliveira is going to be desperate to get a takedown, and I'm not quite convinced that he's going to be able to do it. So, my pick is going to be Jeremy Stephens. Now, what do the numbers tell us for this one, Reed?
Yeah, they're in agreement. I think when this stays on the feet, Stephens is far and away the more dangerous striker. He has 8 career knockdowns. His knockdown rate is well above average. And the problem with Oliveira is that he allows himself to get hit. He makes other guys look pretty good on the stat line because he is taking a beating sometimes, probably because he is eventually searching for that takedown, and maybe he's willing to eat a punch on the way in. So that's a concern for Oliveira. On the mat, totally different story, obviously. Clearly, Oliveira is going to be wanting to get the takedowns. His takedown success rate is not very good. It's actually below average. But then again, Stephens' takedown defense is about average. So he has been put on his back, more often than not. He's the one, on his back when he hits the mat. And Oliveira attempts submissions at a very high rate, and clearly he's gotten it done plenty of times against some high-level grapplers. So on the feet, clearly Stephens has the knockout threat. On the ground, Oliveira all day long, if he can get it there. So here's another instance, how are these guys going to fare in a smaller cage? Is that going to help Stephens because he wants to land those strikes sooner, or is it going to help Oliveira because he can maybe back up Stephens and cut him off and try to clinch takedown? I don't know. And on paper, it is extremely even and stylistically different enough that I don't really feel confident. This is not one that I would want to make a bold prediction and really side with one guy, because they both have clear paths to victory. So I do think that the line is appropriately set. I mean, it's flipping back and forth. It's hard to decide on who really gets the advantage here. And it actually should be a good fight because it's going to be that battle for position and who gets to dictate where it goes. I do see a lot of finishing potential also, and I think the lines reflect that. So that's, my best prediction is that this should be a pretty fun fight and very competitive one.
Now this brings us to the main event of the evening. We have a women's strawweight championship fight, the inaugural UFC women's strawweight championship fight between Ultimate Fighter Season 20 finalists Carla Esparza, who is 10-2, taking on Rose Namajunas, who is 3-1. Now, Nick, where did you open this fight, and how's the public shifted things so far?
I opened Esparza -130. The comeback on Namajunas was -110. Line has since flipped. I mean, Namajunas' popularity is ridiculous, and it's great to see, really. She was impressive on the show. She deserves it. She's a very talented fighter. So all the hype, all the support that she's getting is not really that surprising. The fight basically opened to pick 'em with a slight lean towards Esparza. But right now, like I said early on, this line is fresh still, so we could see it move even higher. It's -175 for Rose, and the comeback on Esparza is +135, so all one-way action towards Rose. It's kind of tricky because obviously, like I said, I think Rose is the more well-rounded of the two fighters. I think she's the better striker. I think she's more dangerous on the ground with her submission game as well. Her wrestling's not that bad, but that seems to be a little bit of a weakness in most cases for her. She can get put on her back, can get controlled a little bit. She's hard to deal with, though, once you do get her on the floor because Rose is so active. Her guard game is legit. She can sweep and get top position and then do some damage from there. Or she's just an aggressive fighter on the feet as well, so she doesn't have to be on the ground to win this fight. But Carla is getting better in her own right. I was impressed. Her boxing's definitely getting better with time. She's putting more work in. You could tell her punches and her technique are a little bit cleaner. They're a little bit stronger. She could be a little bit more effective in that realm. But usually, Carla's the girl that takes the fight to the floor, controls people. She's got a decent ground and pound game, of course, too. She can win by submission if needed. I don't think she's going to be able to submit Rose in this spot, but she's just basically your typical grinder that's tough as nails and always brings it and controls the tempo of the fight. And her fight IQ is pretty good as well. So, this is going to be an awesome fight. Worthy of a title fight for sure. I'm going another fight that I'm going kind of back and forth on here, but I do think the way the public is coming in early on is probably the right call because Rose is the better overall fighter. She's definitely the more skilled fighter, and I've been impressed with her progression too as a fighter overall. Just not too long ago, she had more flaws in her game, and she seems to be getting better and better. So both these girls are improving, but I think Rose is a little bit more capable as far as a finisher goes, and this is a 5-round title fight. So it's hard to say if it's going to hit the scorecards or not. If it does hit the scorecards, I think it's going to be really competitive. You almost have to give the edge to Carla if it does hit the cards slightly because she might be able to control a little bit more of the fight, but I could see Rose winning a decision. But if it doesn't end on the cards, then it's probably going to be Namajunas by submission or by TKO stoppage. So she's the better finisher for sure. And again, I'm going to slightly lean towards Rose. Now, it is a little bit of a dangerous spot, I think, if the line keeps escalating much beyond this point. I'm not sure if it's going to be worth a bet or not, but I could definitely see a slight edge for Rose Namajunas in this fight, and she's going to be my official pick as well.
And I agree with that assessment. Rose is, in my opinion, the more dynamic fighter, but Carla Esparza is definitely the superior wrestler and the more physically strong fighter. That didn't stop Rose from pulling off, a strongman type of submission in the semifinals against Randa Marcos, who is another similar style fighter to Carla Esparza. In my opinion, Randa's a bit of a poor man's version of Carla Esparza. So it'll be very interesting to see this dynamic between them because on the feet, Rose is all over the place. She can throw crazy kicks. She has some really nice, crisp punching and footwork. She's very light on her feet. Esparza is much more plodding, straightforward. She does have some good power with both her left and right hooks and some straight punches, but she is definitely not as technical as Rose on the feet. But in my opinion, I do think that Carla has a little bit more power, where Rose's most dangerous, obviously, is on the ground. As you saw on the show, she was able to submit Alex Chambers, Randa Marcos, and Joanne Calderwood, which was extremely impressive to make it to this finals. So Carla Esparza's biggest strength is the takedown, to get her opponents on the canvas, keep them down, beat them up, or just hold them down and win rounds. She's capable of both, and it's going to be very interesting to see if she's willing to go in there, repeatedly take Rose down and keep her down, because Rose is so active off her back. I mean, she is all over the place on the canvas. She will climb her legs up and go for everything. And it's crazy to watch her fight because you just can't keep a beat on her on the ground. It's very tough to keep her in one spot. She is always going for something. It could actually go to her detriment because if she's not getting submissions, because she's so active off of her back, she could actually force the referee to just keep them on the ground because she's doing so much work. So that could be to her detriment if she doesn't finish something. Now, in terms of pure punching power, Rose isn't the greatest in that department. She's very flashy. She does a lot of really unique things. And I think she can be very dangerous if she connects with, a big head kick. But I think Carla has a much more punching power. We've seen Carla really turn it on with some ground and pound if she gets some space and she feels safe from top position. I don't know if she'll ever get to that point against Rose if she does take her down, but that could definitely come into play because when Carla does hit you, it's going to hurt. And while Carla Esparza has gone the full 5 rounds before in her inaugural title opportunity where she defeated Beck Hyatt, now Beck Rawlings, I don't think that she'll have a cardio advantage. The cardio should be a bit of a wash. So really what this fight's going to boil down to is, can Carla get her to the canvas repeatedly? And that probably will happen. And then the other thing is, will Carla be able to avoid the submission game? Because as you saw in the semifinal fight, Carla really didn't want anything to do with Jessica Penne's submissions on the ground. She was more getting the takedowns for points, and she didn't want to stay down there long enough to let her set something up. So, very interesting dynamic with the ground game, and on the feet, I really do expect Rose to get the better of it. She just mixes it up really well, and I think she's going to make Carla very off balance, because while Carla was able to land some decent shots against Jessica Penne, I don't think she'll be able to do that against Rose, because Rose is so quick and crazy. My one problem with Rose is she doesn't have the greatest striking defense. She is willing to get hit sometimes. That hurt her against Tecia Torres, and she was starting to get tagged a little bit by Joanne Calderwood before the submission. So we could see Rose take some damage in this fight as well. But all in all, I think over the course of a 5-round fight, I think Rose could absolutely get a finish at some point in this fight, and I think she is my pick to click. So I'm going with Rose, but you gotta watch out for that wrestling. That is the biggest factor in the whole fight is Carla Esparza's top position control. But my pick will be Rose Namajunas.
So that'll do it for our full event breakdown for the Ultimate Fighter 20 finale. Part 2 of the Premium Oddscast featuring our premium bets will be out Thursday afternoon following the weigh-ins. So stay tuned for that if you're an MMAOddsBreaker.com premium member. Now also, pay attention because if you're not a member and you want to be one, now is the perfect time to sign up. We have a special holiday sale. You can get 4 events for the price of 2. And of course, they come with our guarantee that you win money or we give you another package completely for free. And now, if we have any free bets to give out this weekend for both UFC events, make sure to follow at MMAOB Premium on Twitter because that's where we'll post them first. We can also notify you of our free bets via email alerts if you prefer that method. Just send an email to picks@MMAOddsBreaker.com and we'll add you to our free bet mailing list. Also, feel free to like our Premium Oddscast Facebook page. We post articles, show announcements, and plenty of other information there so you can stay up to date on everything from us if you're interested. Special thanks to our sponsor 5 Dimes. Good luck everyone, and hopefully the betting gods are on your side this weekend.